All right, gang. So today we're going to take, or tonight rather, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about the Holocaust. At our school anyway, you learn a lot about the Holocaust as freshmen, and so we're not going to spend so much time on the Holocaust as we are on tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot about other genocides that have taken place in the 20th century. Well, first of all, we got to talk about what is and define the word genocide. The Holocaust is just one example of a genocide that's taken place in the took place rather in the 20th century. But a genocide is the targeting and execution or killing of one group of people or a specific group of people for political, religious, or ethnic purposes. Because they are politically, religiously, or ethnically different than you, you target that group and you persecute them, usually leading to taking their life and executing or killing them. This can take the form of mass deportations, kicking them out of your country, making them move from one place in the country to another. It can take the form of all of those. So the Holocaust in particular, obviously, you know that it took place in Germany. It took place during the era of World War II. And it was mainly perpetrated by the German Nazis. So what happened? Well, there was the mass murder of over 6 million people. Over 6 million people were executed either because of their religious beliefs or because of something that they had that was perceived as wrong or lesser of them. Who was the target of the Holocaust? Well, in Germany, it was the Jewish people. People of Jewish faith. As you'll remember, we've talked about the Jewish diaspora and the spreading out of Jewish people all throughout the world following the second destruction of Solomon's temple, or the destruction of Solomon's temple. Well, and the Nazis took this as the Jewish people were a plague on society. The Jews were dragging people down. And the Nazis, in their worldview, Hitler put it out that they were the ones to blame often for what had happened to Germany. And it wasn't just them, it was also other undesirable. Hitler wanted to create a perfect race, wanted to essentially breed humans to create these perfect, what were in his mind, perfect people, perfect ethnically, perfect genetically, perfect people. And so he got rid of undesirables. Now, who were the undesirables? Homosexuals were considered undesirable. Mentally handicapped people were considered undesirable. Other undesirable people would be gypsies. Gypsies are an ethnic group that are generally from Southeast Asia or Southeastern Europe or Eastern Europe. And they were also persecuted because of their beliefs and more or less their lifestyle that they lived. And why was this? Well, what allowed the Holocaust to happen? Well, for one, it was totalitarian nationalism. The idea that you are a nation, or that the Germans were a nation, and that they eventually gave up total control of their government to one person, kind of led to this. He whipped up the sense of nationalism that we are better than everyone else and we are the best. It feeds into this sense that anyone different from you is inferior, and the different people are to be feared, and the different people, there's something wrong with them because they're not us, because we're better than they are. And that's one of the things that allowed it to happen. Second reason why the Holocaust happened was Europe had a long history of anti-Semitism. If you remember, when we talked about Martin Luther was a violent, or vehement rather, anti-Semite. He really did not like Jewish people either. He saw them as evil as well. And so anti-Semitism, or hatred of Jewish people, is not a new thing in European history. It's got a very long history. Third reason, as I said earlier, was following World War I and the economic depression, Hitler blamed it on Jewish people. He said they were a drain on society. They were the ones that attacked us. Even Jewish people outside of Germany attacked us, and the Jewish people were the ones that blamed us for the problems. Now, obviously, this is not correct. It was essentially made up, but he had to have a scapegoat in order to blame Germany's problems. And Hitler's belief that the Aryan race, even though he misused the word Aryan and the term Aryan, Hitler's belief that the Aryan peoples were the master race, were the pinnacle or the best race in all the world. It was pretty common, actually, at the time to believe that there was a racial hierarchy in the world. And at the top of that, Europeans often saw themselves at the top. And I've been asked, well, why did Europeans believe that? Well, Europeans believed that because in their version of history and what had been going on at that point is that Europeans had dominated Africans, Europeans had dominated Asians. Now, in fact, Asians, China in particular, had really not wanted anything that the Europeans had to offer, but there is a certain truth to the fact that the Europeans had, for recent history anyway of the 20th century, been able to dominate and force their will upon other groups of people. And so they took that to mean that they were the better race, even though that's obviously not true. So how did he go about it? The solution to this was the final solution. Now, initially, Hitler just wanted to take all the Jewish people and he wanted to isolate them and pack them into ghettos. Ghettos, the word is basically just inner cities. The ghettos are just special places for Jewish people to live and isolate where they live. Well, once he figured out that there were so many Jewish people in Eastern Europe, Poland in specifically, he said, well, we've got to have a different way to deal with this. And so how did he do it? Well, he figured out, well, I got to kill everyone. We need to kill everyone. And so they went through a series of methods to figure out the most efficient way to do that. And they started out shooting them. And they figured out that this took a tremendous psychological toll on the soldiers. And so they went from shooting to extermination camps. So they put them in camps and they worked them to death, giving them little food. And so they essentially worked them to death, providing them a little food and making them work long hours. And last but not leastly, they developed gas chambers. They would force Jewish people to go in and say they were taking baths or showers rather, and they would actually fill the room with a gas called Zyklon B, which would eventually cause them to die. So those are some who, what, when, where, and why. About the Holocaust, again, it's real brief, and we'll explore other examples of genocide in the 20th century tomorrow. Bye, guys.